there is, the water right for the Libby Dam is attached to the FERC license, and that's with the dam being operational. And for some reason, if they're not able to comply with the FERC license, the hydrographs show that the time where there could be a call, which is the 20%, 2 out of every 10 years would be the possibility. There would be no way to, they wouldn't call because the water wouldn't be at a level during irrigation system. Now, if the dam was removed, if the dam was totally removed, it would revert back to an in-stream flow linked to the bull trout.
Well, what does that mean? An in-stream flow, and that's controlled by, that right is controlled by the tribe with the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Now, we've got all kinds.
There are 27 different water rights that could be subject to a water call in 2 of 10 years, which amounts to, there's 430 acres of irrigable lands that could be subject to a call should the Libby Dam be removed.
Well, what do you think about that?
I would say that they're going to get called anyways if the Libby Dam is removed because of the bull trout, and I would also say that if we're worried about removing the dam, we got a lot more to worry about than 400 acres of irrigable land.
Do you have any idea?
We're talking about Monterey's Ferry, we're talking about all the properties along the river, we're talking, but even if the dam were to come out somehow, which I honestly don't ever see it happen, if it were to, the Endangered Species Act will be the limiter on that rather than the tribal industry law.
Well, you know, along with the government, we've got the Clean Water Act, we've got the scenic and whatever rivers, we've got all kinds of laws. If you've read the state water plan, as I have, you've got all sorts of regulations and more acquisition of lands and water in this state. The Forest Service has filed, and last year, the year before last, has filed for all sorts of streams that originate, the headwaters originate on forest land to protect the so-called, well, I want to know about.
Well, and you're speaking of a different water pact.
I'm talking about
that was passed in 2007, which is the Federal Reserve Water Compact for federal lands, which they have until 2060 to be able to perfect, meaning that they have to go and do their measurements and apply for those in-stream flows.
Okay, what about
but that's a totally different.
Tell me about, these are all rules and regulations that are coming down. Will come down.
But there's no, and that's one of the other, there is no regulatory give in this compact. You have, just because somebody's going to have a right to use the water, Montana still owns the molecules. It is still our water, and it is a right to use that water. That's what we're talking about. That's that Federal Reserve right held in trust for the tribes. So the tribe is, the UMB, I'm surprised that hasn't got brought up today, but there's going to be tribes controlling 11 counties in northwest Montana. It's just not true. The tribe is not going to be able to do anything but get the water in stream. They can't even take it out of stream even if they wanted to. Federal law prohibits it. It has to remain in stream as a non-consumptive.
Well, maybe they ought to change the law.
Well, Congress could if it wanted. Hitchcock 1905 said that Congress has plenary authority over tribes.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I have seen people with their arms up like they're about to fall off. So I think it would be nice if some other people had a chance to.
You bet.
Thank you. You have.
We had one in the back. It's been back here.
I have a simple question. Before you guys were reelected, you were against this, and now since you've been reelected, have you polled the citizens on how they feel about it? Like even just the citizens in this room, how many people are for or against it, so that you can then better see what your constituents think about this?
Well, part of what I'm doing tonight is making myself available to my constituents so that I can talk to them about what is inside of the compact, because 98% of all of the communications that I've gotten about the compact have not been accurate. So what I want to do is have educational forums such as this, and I'll continue to do them even after the legislative session, but I didn't even know, I was against the previous compact until I got the revisions that they integrated into this compact. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to support it until I read it, and now I have, and now I do. In fact, I'm sponsoring it, because it is going to be, as far as I'm concerned, I would love to know what Representative Tuff, what the plan is for July 1st, 2015. No compact, go.
My question is this, if, I mean, you're worried, or they're worried about what's going to happen, how many are for, how many against, but you know what? That's one reason, the one lady down here said it was Christians, I guess you put trust in your legislators and the amount of work that they do. I don't know how much work you've done, or etc., but it seems to me that what we're trying to pass is we're going to still remain with what we have, and we're not going to lose it. Am I correct in that?
Well, the compact is not going, the Lincoln County provision, if we're, just Lincoln County, there is 4 streams that we're talking about that are surrounded by federal land. That's why it's not going to impact anybody. If we go with it, and what I'm talking about when I say July 1st, 2015, when these, because they have to be filed by July 30th. That's state law. It's not threat. It's not legislation by intimidation. We've told them if you don't file, you lose your ability to even be in our water court. So they have to file, and they're going to file. And when they file, everybody, part of it, as far as the politics of right now, the best thing for my political career at this point is for this compact to die, because everything I'm saying is going to happen.
Right on.
Everything will happen. So when we're called back into a special session, I don't want to hear anybody griping about the fact that the Attorney General and the Water Court is going to be standing there saying, we do not have the resources to be able to take care of the claims to even begin. They're going to file in federal court and say that we don't have the resources, and under the McCarran Amendment, we can now adjudicate these things in federal court. We don't want that to happen, so we're going to go back and it will be in a special session, throwing a bunch of money at the water court. Now that's just the water court. Conservative estimates on what it's going to cost the people who are going to have to defend their own water right claims again in these 40 basins is over $1.5 billion.
It's a lot of coercion.
Way to go, Chad.
No, it's $1.5 billion.
Well,
That's what conservative estimates, and it's fine for, I'm the guy who has to push the button though. I'm the one who has to push the button. That's the decision that I'm making. Why would I put everybody through that when there's people that have already spent $200,000 adjudicating their rights, fighting over their neighbors over the water rights? Why would we make them go back through and start over all again when this compact allows everybody who hasn't the ability to adjudicate? You can adjudicate just like everybody else has already done.
But your job is to represent us.
Huh?
Right? But your job is to represent us.
Absolutely.
And this, in the,
Gentleman over here.
I quit, I'm leaving.
He's had his hand up for
please,
an hour.
Pat, please.
I waited 3.5 hours to talk to you last Monday, and I couldn't talk to you
Last Monday?
in Helena.
I wasn't in Helena last Monday.
You were there, I saw you,
I was here in Libby last Monday.
the 16th.
Can you go ahead and?
I waited 3.5 hours. By the time I finally got in there, all I could say was I'm against it.
Hey, I think you got the floor now, go ahead.
Go for it, go for it. I'm just reading this, and this is from a little lady in Thompson Falls. I'll just read this and be done with it. This compact, you're a champion, and the Senate is a bad deal for Montana. I watched Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech this morning in the joint session of Congress. He was addressing the nuclear compromise of Iran. He said it was a bad deal, and that no deal was better than that deal. Well, I submit to you, the water compact is a bad deal, and no deal is better than this deal. You're feeling confident in your deal because you managed to exempt the watershed of Kootenai Basin from the water compact. Well, I always thought laws are supposed to treat everyone equally. How can your private deal that treats the residents of Lincoln County different than the rest of Montana be a good deal? Thanks for nothing. I was in Helena when you gave your impassioned speech in front of the committee. That was a cowardly speech, and as much as you're afraid of the future lawsuits by the tribe. In Idaho, the tribes threatened lawsuits, and 5 or 6 was successful. Is that what you're afraid of? Would you rather just give up and fight for your constituents? And that's all I have to say. The rest of it.
Well, first of all, I would say that I've answered part of the Idaho case. I don't want to get into a situation where if you want to have no compact, or you don't want to settle, you want to litigate, you know who's going to have all of everybody's future in Lincoln County and everybody in Flathead County and Sanders County, all those water right claims that they're going to be filing, there's going to be one person, the Attorney General. He's going to have the ability to settle. That's how the law works. And I personally, I do not feel that it is better to, and I didn't sell anybody out. We have half of the time immemorial flows in Lincoln County in the entire compact. That's taken on half of the burden.
For Lincoln County, what about the rest of the western Montana?
Yeah.
What about it? Which parts do you want to talk about? I'm willing to talk about any part of the compact. There's 14 Murphy rights. There are already existing fish, life, and parks and stream flows that the tribe is going to be co-owner of. And the other 4, we can talk about those, we can talk,
Sir,
but
didn't
I'm-
you say you were from Trout Creek?
Yes, ma'am.
So are you talking about that area?
Yes, ma'am.
well,
So
and
that
the
might
only,
be confusing.
the only water that in your area, there was in that off-reservation area, I also recommended that they not be allowing them to, because they were gonna close 2 basins in the draft, in the first draft that I saw in your area. The only water right that is in your area is down at Cabinet Gorge. It's attached to Vista's FERC license, and it actually moves with the FERC license. So there is no tributaries whatsoever that are even impacted by the off-reservation portion of this compact in your neck of the woods. Contrary to what will happen in July of this year. We don't pass this compact, and those claims are gonna be filed all over northwest Montana, and everybody with a water right is gonna have to get a lawyer or defend themselves in a court saying that the tribal was, that there was no tribal use of that water whatsoever, ever. That's gonna be, that's what is going to happen. And I'm not trying to scare everybody, I'm just saying that's what's gonna happen. If you think that that's scary, I do too. That's why I don't wanna go through it. I wanna protect the people that have water rights in Lincoln County, in Sanders County, in Flathead County. And when everybody that has a dog in the fight with water rights, like the Montana Farm Bureau, the Montana Farmers Union, the Montana Stock Growers, the Montana Water Users Association, all those guys that have the attorneys, that have the people that have spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for the water rights, when they all stand up after reading this compact and say, this is a good deal, we support it, I'm gonna be going with them too. Ed?
Well, okay, first of all, there were 3 things there are 3 words that came up here tonight that I really would like to discuss a little bit. One was kind, one was trust, and one was coward. First of all, I want to thank you for your courage in doing what you've done. It's very easy for you to have just walked away from this whole thing, let the timetable run down, and let it go to the court. And we all, I don't know if there's anybody who knows better about what goes on in the court than the people of Lincoln County. We've suffered here for 30 years because of the court. I've heard every kind of thing talked about here. I'm not really happy with NASA either, but I don't think that was the issue here. Now, as far as the trust, you have to remember, there's a lot of people involved in this. That's why it's a compact. So if everybody didn't get what they want here, I'm sorry, but that's how the system works. Now, if it goes to court, it's not going to work like that. I don't know where it will come. I don't have a crystal ball, but I certainly have hindsight to go with. And in all the time that we've been going in Lincoln County, I've never seen the courts vote with us on one thing. The courts rule against us all the time. And so if we don't understand that, because we're talking about time and why you didn't do more and why we can't have more time, that time is up. It's coming to an end. And if we don't understand that, if we don't understand that what we're looking at right now is a fine situation to be in, it's not great. Nobody here likes it. But I'll guarantee you, I believe it's better than what we're going to get if we don't do this. The courts are going to rule on this.
Well, Ed, that's exactly that's my word. And we're in the Ninth Circuit, wish we could change it. There's case law that hasn't even been given certiorari out of the Ninth Circuit to the Supreme Court.
I've got some groups, and the question I get from them is, where did this all happen come from? And when I read the papers, I see some ranchers that credit the 1855 Stevens-Hellgate Treaty. And Mr. Solomon in the paper referenced the treaty as where it came from. So I look at the background past that 72 of what can I do to help those people understand that. And the other thing is, I did talk to Mr. Solomon, and he told me that the people really gave up nothing in this treaty. The irrigators, the people using the water gave up nothing. And that the Indians really didn't get anything. Well, if the Indians didn't get anything, and we didn't give up nothing, then why are we doing it?
Amen.
And the biggest question though is, if this is all, the trading is all happening, why are we giving them $50-some million of our state money if in fact nobody got anything?
Amen.
But a big part of, and I would disagree with whoever you're speaking to. I think that the tribe is getting something in this, particularly with the ability to market water at a hungry horse, which is a benefit on both sides actually. But they're going to be the ones who get the monetary gain out of that. I believe that they get their water rights settled. I believe that they have, because of the Ciati decision that's on the reservation, in which we have thousands of wells that have been drilled on the reservation since 1996, when the Montana Supreme Court prohibited the DNRC from issuing any new water rights. They benefit from getting all of those, because a lot of those are tribal members as well that have wells that they're really illegal for that matter. When you look at the money, $13 million of it is for the Little Bitterroot, and that's for aquatic and terrestrial restoration, I guess is what the term that they use it for. But that's because of Painted Rocks Reservoir. And, again, there's another term that they have agreed to Murphy right that is in that area in the Bitterroot, rather than pursue their 1855 treaty right or their time immemorial water right, which is, I'm not sure which one they would pursue. But that $13 million is for the Little Bitterroot. There's $30 million that's going to be going into a pump fund that is going to pay, it's going to buy low-cost power. That there's a block of power that is, I can't remember what it is a kilowatt hour now. It'll fluctuate somewhat, but the interest off of that money is going to pay for the pumping station that's going to be supplying supplementary water to the Flathead system compact water that is going to come from Flathead River. It's about 65,000 acre-feet out of that. Their interest off of that account is also going to do some of the things that we integrated into the compact after hearing concerns about some people that were living in the area when we were talking about the efficiencies, because there's $4 million of that 55 goes to on-farm efficiencies, $4 million is going to measuring, and $4 million goes to rehabilitation of the structures on. And the reason for those partial down payments is because the feds, if they're going to appropriate money, they always, and every other compact that we've done, they always require some state side to that deal, and however much money is going to be, going to result from this, I'm not sure. It's going to be a lot, and it's going to take a lot of money to rehabilitate the entire infrastructure of this irrigation system. But it has to have a state share, and I want to use those state resources first. That's why there's only $8 million in this bill that I'm carrying to do the water measurement, to make sure that those irrigators are going to get the water that we promised them they were going to get. We make sure that they get their historic consumptive use, and we also work on some of the efficiencies. Some of that interest money, as I was saying, goes to one of the other things, which is a mitigation fund for people that, through changes of use, there's going to be a lot of lateral ditches, or there's a lot of ditch loss, a lot of water that goes into the aquifer because of the transmissivity of the soils. So they're going to pipe some of that. And when they do that, those aquifers aren't going to get the water that they should be. In some places, it could be as high as 30%. lack of recharge. And in some of those places, those landowners that are living in and around that change of use are going to have to do something with their wells. They'll likely have to drill their wells deeper. Now, what my biggest worry about putting that inside the compact is it makes a scary precedent for the rest of the state, particularly for agriculture operations all across the state, our biggest industry in Montana. Because a water right, if you're gonna change your use, if you're gonna go from flood irrigation to center pivot, you're being more efficient, you're transporting water in a more efficient way, and you're not having that ditch loss into the aquifer. If we started making everybody who did a change of use in the state of Montana have to mitigate for the neighbor's well, the capital would get lit on fire. Because we would be talking about billions of dollars just in the change of use process. So
You did mention the Stevens Treaty there, when you referred this back, the controversy was the Stevens Treaty, you also just referenced that Stevens Treaty. So it really is the one that starts the whole ball into motion?
the 1855 Hellgate Treaty, yes, and it's one of 7 Stevens treaties.
Not in the speech.
Chaz, so the $55 million is state allocation to the compact, is that correct? So that's taxpayer money going through the state of Montana to the tribes?
Yep.
What about the $1.255 billion the federal government is going to contribute to this whole thing? My understanding is that the Supreme Court has ruled that whatever the federal government finances, it can control. So I'm really concerned about that aspect of this whole thing, because basically the reservation is held in trust. It's land held in trust by the federal government, correct? And then the federal government...
The land is not held in trust by the federal government. Well, Congress and the federal government has plenary authority over everything tribal. Hitchcock, 1905. We can argue over, we can split hairs. So Congress can do whatever it wants to a reservation, and they've proven that. That's one of the reasons why we have this big mess. But what I'm saying is the tribe consider themselves to be a sovereign entity recognized by both the U.S. Supreme Court and Congress. So if you ask that question to them, they're going to say, no, this is our land. When we know, because of Hitchcock 1905, that yes, Congress could do, they can open up the reservation, they can close it again. That's why they did that, is because they have that right. I agree. But as far as their control over the water, that's what you're worried about, the money and where it's going to go on the project.
I'm worried about the $1.255 billion.
Oh, well, me too, and that's a number that I keep hearing. It keeps coming up, and I've been asking everybody, where does the 1.2 come from? And nobody I've been able to talk to knows. But there is for the last compact that we did, I guess that would be the largest in size as far as things that we agreed to in the compact, was $490 million the feds put into rehabilitation. And that project, from what I'm told, is small in comparison to what we're talking about. So it could be a sizable amount of money that basically the BIA, because they did not invest since essentially 1908, when they amended the 1904 Allotment Act to include the need for an irrigation system. From then to now, they haven't done a very good job of maintenance, and there's a lot of money that's going to be put into it. We have a question. Former Senator Curtis said she had her hand up a couple